All right, we're getting people in the room. I see our attendee number coming up. Welcome, everybody. We're glad you're here. Thanks for joining us for this event. We're going to give people a couple of minutes to join. So while we wait for folks to trickle in, please take a moment to introduce yourselves in the chat if you'd like, and we will be starting shortly. And we do ask, so I see there's one note taker in here, so I think we can, we do ask that folks not use note takers in our meetings. So if that is an issue, just let us know, but we'll be removing the AI note taker. Okay. Great, we still have some people trickling in. So once again, let me know that you can actually use the chat. We had that issue once, so write in, just say hello, your name, where you're coming in from. Hi, Tina, Pia, nice, great, awesome. The chat is working. It's always a relief.
I think there's something wrong with the filter because I can see some gray hairs in my.
Oh, come on, Stephen.
Like, oh my God.
I regret to inform you that is not the filter.
Oh Lord.
You're just a vet tech of a certain age.
I remember when I
All
used to be the young one in the hospital, but now I'm not.
All right, so we've given folks, there's still a few folks trickling in, and as they join us, they'll get caught up. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Melody Martinez. I'm a veterinary technician and the executive director and immediate past president of the Multicultural Veterinary Medical Association. And so for those new to MCVMA, our mission is to lead veterinary medicine towards the racial and ethnic diversity, equity, and inclusivity that our profession needs to serve a multicultural society. We envision an equitable and an inclusive profession where people of underrepresented races and ethnicities are valued and supported in their careers, resulting in all communities receiving the benefits of veterinary medicine. You can learn more about us and what we do at mcvma.org, and that link is being put in the chat right now. We're also super grateful to be able to bring you not only this series of webinars, but open access to the Elsevier publications on DEI that we'll be highlighting throughout this webinar series, all of which is made possible by a grant from Maddie's Fund. And we'll put the link to Maddie's Fund in the chat as well if you want to learn more about that. So we really appreciate their support. We do have a few reminders before we start. I'm going to go over some housekeeping here. So the session is being recorded and will be available for viewing later on our YouTube channel. We'll send out the link in a few days after the event. None of you all are visible, so you can be rest assured that your faces won't be on YouTube. We also have a few other things to share. Please use the Q&A feature in your menu bar and not the chat to ask questions so that we can track questions and so that other attendees can upvote questions that they really want answered. We have time for Q&A at the end, but we may not be able to answer every question this evening. You can also turn on live captions and translated captions in this webinar. Just go to the captions feature in your Zoom menu bar, which should be below this video if you're on a computer or a tablet, and click on Show Captions. Click on the little caret in the top right corner of that button to choose your preferred language. If you need any help, please use the chat and request help from our tech support. And then we will be raffling off 2 tickets to our upcoming virtual CE conference, Rise Remix, which Stephen is actually a speaker at Rise Remix this year. We'll be doing that at the end of the session. So to be eligible for that raffle, you need to be present at the end when we do the drawing. 2 winners will be selected at random, and past or present MCVMA board members and staff and tonight's speakers are not eligible. All of this information is being put in the chat as well, just as a reminder. All right, and before I get started, I just want to make sure we're good. Okay, we're ready here. All right, let's get started. So our guests tonight are veterinary technician specialists, Stephen Niño Cital and Camia Camia Tonge. I just said that with like a Spanish accent. I'm giving you guys a little flair. With Camia Tonge, Stephen Niño Cital is a multi-credentialed veterinary technician specialist with a passion for anesthesia, pain management, and cannabinoid medicine. He has authored numerous articles and contributed to several textbooks, including acting as the lead editor for the first cannabinoid medicine textbook. Among the impressive list of accomplishments that you surely read about in his bio when you registered, Stephen is also the COO of the Veterinary Anesthesia Nerds, co-founder of the Veterinary Cannabinoid Academy, and executive director of the Academy of Laboratory Animal Veterinary Technicians and Nurses. He's a lab manager for HHMI at Stanford University in the Department of Neurobiology, in addition to the Chief Veterinary Nursing Officer and Director of Pain and Cannabinoid Medicine Services at Remedy Veterinary Specialists. Welcome, Stephen. Camia Tonge is a credentialed veterinary technician with a master's in instructional design and a bachelor's in English. Camia spent several years in general practice before finding her passion for small animal internal medicine at the Schwarzman Animal Medical Center, obtaining her veterinary technician specialty in small animal internal medicine in 2017. She is the current president-elect and former secretary-treasurer of the Academy of Internal Medicine for Veterinary Technicians and the Metropolitan District Representative for the New York State Association of Veterinary Technicians. She is currently the director of licensed veterinary technicians and assistants in the exotics, dentistry, interventional radiology, endoscopy, ophthalmology, and neurology departments at the Schwarzman Animal Medical Center in New York, where she enjoys teaching and mentoring new veterinary technicians and support staff. As if that wasn't enough, Camia is also the recipient of the DVM 360 2024 Veterinary Heroes Award in the Credentialed Veterinary Technician category. Yeah, accomplished or what? Welcome, Stephen and Camia. It's such an honor to have you both with us this evening.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get started by giving the audience tonight a brief overview of your chapter in Elsevier's Veterinary Clinics, Small Animal Practice, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and Veterinary Medicine, Part 2, which I have right here. So tell us about the key points that you discuss in your chapter. And your chapter is called Diversifying the Veterinary Technician Specialist Pipeline. What are some of the key findings and points that you make? Maybe, Stephen, if you don't mind sharing.
Sure. One of the things that I think we struggle not only with the VTS pipeline, but just veterinary technician profession in general is certainly the awareness gap. Veterinary nursing as a whole profession, I think, is underrepresented, not necessarily talked about in a lot of high schools, certainly colleges, that type of thing. So we touch on that a little bit. We did, I think, one of the first really granular demographic surveys. Granted, we were only capturing responses from VTSs, but I think we have a pretty good granular demographic survey of what our profession looks like, which I don't think to anyone's surprise is showing some like severe homogeneity among members. And then, we also found some systemic barriers that come along with being a vet tech in general. And then certainly those from marginalized communities. And then I think we try to offer some solutions on how we can better the pipeline and hopefully encourage other BIPOC and other underrepresented people to pursue this pathway.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that. You mentioned the kind of lack of awareness of what veterinary technology in general. And in your chapter, you said that 47% of Americans are unaware of what a credentialed veterinary technician is, and 74% don't understand what we do. How do you think that this lack of awareness about the credentialed veterinary technician role contributes to the kind of overall lack of diversity in the technician and the VTS pipelines?
I guess I could take this one, Stephen. I think what I would say is the lack of public awareness, not only just for the credentialed technician in general, directly contributes to the lack of diversity. Because if they don't know what we do and know who we are, we cannot then have more, there's going to be a limited amount of visibility, which also allows for a limited amount of inspiration that we're going to give to, anyone that's interested in the profession, but even more specifically, those of the BIPOC community in general. I think that there's going to be then with limited visibility, if we already have that in the general public space, then we have this the smaller group that was that's also going to have that limited visibility. There's going to be fewer entry points available for those people into that profession to know more about what we do and know more about what the profession is. It also then allows for the profession in general to be undervalued. And through our paper and through the research and the study that we've done, we know that there's going to be socioeconomic challenges that is faced by the underrepresented that come in. And if the profession is undervalued, that means less pay, less opportunities for career advancement, and less financial security for them in the profession. So it's going to definitely cause challenges for them to be coming into the profession. So I think that in addition to some other challenges in reference to them thinking, that the profession and specialization is going to be more of a challenge, it's going to be less attainable, it's contributes to the lack of diversity within the profession.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, it sounds like what the profession really needs is like a public awareness campaign. Um, you know, maybe we need billboards on the side of the road saying this is what a technician is. You were
I,
going to say something, Stephen. Yeah.
I also wanted to tack on, I think this problem is a very big problem, but I think something that I also noticed between different affinity groups, all well intended, is definitely a push to like be a veterinarian. This is a veterinarian.
Yeah.
I never wanted to be a veterinarian. Where I think that visibility portion comes in again. And especially for BIPOC communities, like when we don't see ourselves represented, that's just another barrier that has to be overcome. I did a panel with Maria Pardo and Nicole Bruno at IVEX this year, and we were discussing our our presence in the field and the number of messages we get from other Latinx for that panel in particular, community members saying it's good to see someone there and it makes me feel like I can do that. So I again, like I think that visibility part is really important. And also not just this push to become a veterinarian. That's the only profession within this industry to reach for.
Yeah, that's definitely such a good point. You see it a lot with young kids too.
And I think that my story is a little bit different from Stephen in the sense of that I think that for me, it was not that I never wanted to become a veterinarian. I think the veterinarian profession was the only one that I knew. It was the only one that was kind of like in my face, or the only one that I was aware of even existed. And I think that we mentioned in the paper, like I did not know about credential technician until it was up to the point where becoming a veterinarian was not in my life plan, in my trajectory. And then it had to find an alternative. And it was just like, I just happened upon to be knowing what a credential technician is. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This is actually what I wanted and what I really wanted this entire time. But it took me that long. It took me following kind of a different path to find what a credential technician is. And I think that's what we need to change.
Yeah, for sure. I remember I got my first dog when I was 14 and had gone to the vet, never saw anyone who looked like me. And so I never considered a job in veterinary medicine at all. And then I think I was maybe 21 when someone I was working with was like, have you ever considered working? I was working in a medical office as a medical assistant. Someone said, have you ever considered working with animals? And it had never occurred to me. So really it took that long from like age 14 till I was 21 for me to like even consider it. And even when I got there, I wasn't thinking I'm going to be a tech. Like it didn't even occur to me. So both of you, yeah, like right on point with that. We need a public awareness campaign. We need a lot of conversation about what a veterinary technician is and what we do. So I want to go back to your chapter and your survey. Your survey reached 14% of the total VTS population, which is an impressive sample. were there any patterns or any differences among the 16 specialty academies that surprised you, either in representation or engagement with the survey? You know, are some academies more diverse than others? And if so, are there any insights as to why you think that is, or what they're doing differently to attract such diverse applicants? And when I say diverse, I mean like even beyond just being people of color. Like, did you notice any trends or anything like that? And what might be giving to that? Why might that be the case?
Sure. So, you know, we had 216 respondents out of about, was it 1,534 VTSs at the time. And I would say like general trend seemed pretty similar to other demographic studies that we've seen. I would say we are maybe a little bit less diverse compared to general population. What I will say is there was a new study that came out literally on the 7th of October that I thought was really interesting. And they had a representation of 577 VTSs, which is a larger sample, which is great. But what I saw the difference there, or what I see in the difference between our survey and their survey, is a huge increase in the Latinx community within that survey. So if you were part of that survey, where are you at? We've been looking for you. Please contact me. I have so many things for you to do. And we saw that with the Black and African American demographic as well, and certainly the Native and Indigenous communities. Sadly, which seems weird to me, because I know they're out there, but we did not see any representation really from Pacific Islander and Middle Eastern or Arab people. And that's also represented in the new study that came out on the 7th. So, you know, that's a huge area for us to improve on because there was zero representation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and so I mean, it's hard to say, you know, are some academies more diverse than others? It just depends on who you happen to hear from, partly, right? Okay. Okay, so beyond race and ethnicity, your study also really looked at gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, and visible or audible characteristics like accents. Were there any intersections between those factors that you found especially important to highlight, or anything among those identities that stood out to you?
Do you want to say anything, Maya?
What I was going to say, I think that for me, one of the things that was important in with the intersections of those um things that we specifically looked at, especially with accent and perceived competence. I think that language made a big difference, and how important and a big factor that VTSs or just any credential technician have, and the role that that plays in their role in their job titles. I think gender identity and specialty cultures. They I think that the academies in general and the pipeline and the VTSs are working on really working towards trying to make the pipeline more diverse and more welcoming. I think that there is an understanding now and realities now that DIB and strategies in reference strategies related to DEIB is important for the pipeline. And so I think that all of those things are going to really impact how how these things are going to intersect for the VTS pipeline. Sorry, I'm a little all over the place today. Baby's crying.
Okay, got you. So it's essentially like the strategies that we employ now towards diversity, equity, inclusion, like those can help hopefully diversify the pipeline, right? But
Yeah.
it sounds like we need, so it sounds like we need a multifactorial kind of strategy, right? Or a multi-method strategy where it's like the awareness campaign and also the DEIB strategies that help to bring more people of color into the profession, into the credential technician side of things, and then through the VTS pipeline, right?
I think one of the things that's really, sorry, Stephen. One
No,
of the
go
things
ahead.
that's really great about the study is that we're like, I think like we were saying, I think this is also one of the first studies that we're actually like asking these questions, and we're triggering this conversation, and we're saying, hey, this is something that we really need to look at, because we know that understanding and understanding these differences, and understanding this will make a difference in the work and the work that we do and what we provide to our client and our patients.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Stephen, you're gonna.
Yeah, I think what was also kind of interesting, and you know, if you feel called out, please feel called out. You know, this question seemed to spark some frustration or some racism, nationalism, I don't know, something in people, because there were some responses that were like less than great. As far as, you know, well, does my Jersey accent count, or does my Southern accent count, or that kind of tone, when clearly that's not that's not
That's not what the question
Yeah.
was
the
trying to
the
ask.
thing. And then certainly, when we would ask, how do you identify, I identify as human, like, come on, like, knock it off. That's that's not helpful, but
Right.
it does show that, if that same person was on the credentials committee for an academy, and an underrepresented person were to apply, and or maybe that person was a mentor, like, what kind of what kind of experience are you setting that person up to be, when you're that kind of person? So, I think that's kind of a hidden thing that we didn't intend to find, but is certainly there.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's not what you were, again, it's not what you were asking, and that was obvious. But it's also just information for us, right? Like, it's like it's this idea of like, we can diversify until the cows come home, right? But if the spaces aren't inclusive, if the spaces aren't respectful, if the spaces aren't acknowledging the whole person, and being the kind of, just like in a clinic, if it's not the kind of place that has the culture, the environment that allows people to stay or to come in, they won't,
Right.
right? Um,
And that speaks to the same for the client as well. Like, not only just for, it speaks for the client, it speaks for the new technician that's coming on board, it speaks for just the team in general. And if we're not a little bit more open to those things, we're not gonna progress, and we're not gonna make, we're not gonna go forward with what we need to do to make things better for everyone all together.
Yeah, I agree. So my next question is, and either of you can answer, is how does increased diversity among veterinary technicians and specialists directly translate to better patient outcomes or client satisfaction? I know that this question can be kind of over, what's the word of, like, on the nose, where it's just like, oh, we can all be like, of course, having more representation means better patient outcomes and client satisfaction. We definitely see that in human medicine, but can you share an example with us, or can you tell us how you see increased diversity among technicians and specialists mean better patient outcomes for the patient, for the client? How does that translate?
I think that's diversity among the veterinary technicians and specialists starts and it translates first by building trust. I think that it allows for the client, and in my opinion the patient, to have a little bit of a better like build a better fosters a better relationship, and it allows a little bit more of a level of comfort with the VTS, with the care team, with the client, and with the patient, to allow for them to then go home after all the work that we've done in the hospital, and be able to know that there's a team and someone behind them that they'd be able to reach out and support. So one of the biggest things for me that I tend to also talk about all the time is that I'm very much I love post hospitalization care. And I love I think that that is a vital part of general patient care. And I think it's another reason why I became a small animal VTS, because I like that long-term care part of things. And I think that I always see the relationships that I build with the clients, and how that makes a big difference with them bringing their patient, bringing their pet and their family member back to the hospital, being able to feel comfortable making that phone call to you and say, hey, Fluffy's, seems a little off today, and I don't want to seem like I'm blowing it out of proportion, but that level of understanding and saying, no, I may not be able to, afford to come in, or have these barriers that would not allow me to come into the hospital and having that level of comfort and being able to have that discussion with or any member of the care team because, maybe I look like them or we speak the same language or, those things kind of happen. And I see that happens where say, they're more comfortable with maybe calling. And that in the end makes it better for that patient. They may not be able to afford to come in. And so it'll be a situation where they can't afford to come in and they may not even call because they don't feel that trust or that comfort level in calling. But different when you have more diversity and maybe it's a Spanish speaking client now having related it's speaking to a Spanish speaking technician, they feel more comfortable saying, hey, I'm giving you a call because I have these concerns, I can't afford to come in, but they will make that phone call and that phone call could make a difference between that patient being able to, that owner and that client getting some advice to say, hey, we can do this in the meantime, let me talk to the doctor and this is what we can do and make it better for that pet versus it being that patient doesn't call at all because they don't feel comfortable
Yeah.
or they don't feel comfortable coming into the hospital, they can't afford to come into the hospital. So I guess that's a general example, but that's what I'm gonna use is that post-hospitalization, end of hospitalization care, and education and what happens after the fact. But I think that really helps if we have more diversity among our technicians and our care teams.
Yeah, that's a great point. Stephen?
Yeah, certainly the practical part of it, if you have a multilingual staff, like that is that many more people that you can improve patient care for, explain estimates better, explain what's actually going on. And then I also think kind of the more tricky one, and certainly in the United States, maybe something more difficult to appreciate, is cultural humility, especially if it comes towards euthanasia or the level of care someone is willing to put into their animal, and then certainly respecting certain cultural boundaries. Whether their religion, their faith does not allow euthanasia, and doing things that is respectful to that belief, but also still providing really good patient care and making sure that animal is not suffering, not just saying hands up, they don't believe in euthanasia, I'm just going to let it suffer. Like there are things that we can do that are still in line with their beliefs that are going to be better for the patient and make that experience better for the family, and not watch their dog or their cat or whatever suffer. But still in line with whatever belief system that they subscribe to.
Yeah, that's, I mean, both of you make a lot of sense. It starts with building trust and being able to feel like there's a trusted professional. I mean, that goes for the clinic, for the business itself, right? If they have someone in the clinic who can help bridge cultures and bridge communication and trust, that benefits the clinic's bottom line. Those clients will continue to come back. They'll tell their friends to go to this clinic,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, bridging those belief systems, whether it's spay and neuter is another really great example. Blood transfusions might be another example, in addition to euthanasia, where people might have different beliefs, and there's someone there who maybe doesn't even share those beliefs, but can be like that cultural bridge for the veterinarian or the clinician who's helping with that patient.
I was just going to mention one more thing. It's especially when it comes to the DVM side, I think there's a huge place for VTSs as well. But we're talking about trust and just building this trust, but we're less specific about it. I think it's important for people that are not people of color to understand that there's a lot of generational and like even current trauma when they see someone that is white passing or is a white person. It can be difficult for certain communities to trust that they are getting the best advice, that they are not being ripped off, or like there's a lot of baggage with a lot of different communities, and I just think it's important to be aware of these people's experiences and why they may be kind of looking at you. Should I trust this person? Is this person doing the right thing for my pet? Are they giving me too high of an estimate, too low of an estimate, that kind of thing. So it's, you know, I wanted to be a little bit more specific. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
trauma that has happened with certain communities, and certainly not having a veterinarian and certainly nursing staff taking care of your pet that is familiar with you or part of your community can be uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember bringing my dog into specialty medicine, and at the time when he needed multiple blood transfusions, I wasn't working in a clinic, and so I remember just thinking to myself, "Is this estimate? Are they giving me a lower end estimate or this standard of medicine because they believe something about me, either because of who I am, what I look like, or because I told them I was a technician and they were like, she has no money, we can't offer her this high end level, right?" So it's just interesting to think about like what people are assuming, right? And also the trauma, like you said, Stephen, that people carry in um, with them into that visit. I recently had a client with a similar experience who had a really hard time connecting with the other staff members, and I was able to speak in Spanish, but I was able to talk with him, and that brought down someone who could speak his language, someone who kind of looked like him, could bring down the level of distrust that he had with the whole place and with veterinary medicine. I don't know what his previous experiences were like with vet med, but like that definitely played a part in allowing him to let us help his pet. This was a free clinic too, so we weren't even talking money, but it allowed for this, you know, for this connection that allowed
Yeah.
us to help his pet. So
And I
yeah.
think a lot of this also ties into, you know, technician utilization as well, in the sense
Mhm.
of that, you know, the fact is that these are the spaces and the times within the, you know, the time of that a client and a pet is with us that we can utilize our technicians and our VTSs, and you know that they have that extra level of experience and education that comes into it. The doctor may not be necessarily available. The doctor may not have the time, or like in this conversation, may not be able to relate culturally with that person. And then you have a VTS or credential technician that can go in and have that conversation, not only to bridge that that have that cultural competence, but also have that um, academic competence as a VTS and as a technician, to be able to have that person really understand and absorb what we're like discussing and talking to them, even simply down to explaining an estimate and what's the difference between, you know, the cost of
Mhm.
one thing and why we have to do it in these specific steps. I think coming from someone that looks like them, and it may not be that the doctor has the time to do that, the utilization of a VTS and a technician to do that comes into this is an opportunity for us to also do that as well.
Yeah. Great point. I wanna ask a question. I know we talked about it specific order, but I'm gonna skip around a little bit and ask you this next question because I think we're on this kind of tangent here. I really appreciated the part in your chapter where you noted that many BIPOC technicians can't always prioritize career advancement because of financial and family obligations. And that really resonates with what I've seen too. You know, you see people leave the profession, become nurses, dental hygienists, do something else, right? How do systemic economic factors like multi-generational financial responsibilities or lack of generational wealth impact BIPOC technicians pursuing specialization? And what could VTS academies or associations do to help ease those burdens?
I can start. What I can say is, you know, everything costs money. You know, I'm going to start it and keep it just very simple and realistic at that. And everything costs money. And when you have, unfortunately, I think, you know, because of socioeconomic issues and other things like that, we know that people of color sometimes face challenges where you have to make a choice between literally feeding your family and, you know, going into, you know, furthering your education or furthering your career. And sometimes when you have to make a choice between one or the other, the choice is going to come down to you feeding your family. And so unfortunately, because of that, sometimes there's those that challenge is there, and they are faced with that. And you know, the choices when they have to make that choice, the choice is all usually going to be for their family. I think that one of the things that we can do is, you know, there's scholarships, there's sponsorships, there's mentorship, there's just support that's going to be out there that I think that can be provided by the academies. I think that we can all come together and just increase exposure to the profession in general, so that maybe it's, for us, we kind of felt, I want to say I kind of fell into it. It's one of those things I think that if I would have started maybe a little bit earlier in life, earlier in my education, in my career track with it, that I think that maybe I would have been able to find additional support, financial support, and have
Mhm.
other avenues in which I can get to where I am, where I'm finding am today. So
Mhm.
I guess I'll leave it like that. So yeah, I think that that's just the reality of it all for sometimes for BIPOC people is a choice between raising your family and feeding your family and your career. And sometimes you have to put
Mhm.
your career in a back burner and choose your family first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Steve.
think that's compounded too with a lot of um, BIPOC communities, whether it's Latin, it's Indian, it's whatever, live in multi-generational households. And, I had my mother-in-law with me for the past month and a half, and, my husband there, they're both from Colombia. And, you know, we wanted to be together as a family. And so like sitting down to try to pursue another VTS application was difficult, like they're really proud, they're very supportive, and it's like, okay, you worked on it for an hour, are you ready to go? Like, let's go do this now. I'm like, no, I need like
Right.
5 hours.
And you're like, I gotta study. Yeah.
Or I need to study, yeah. But I think one of the biggest things for any technician really is the cost of CE. And I do see a lot of the VTS academies changing their policies on what is allowable CE. So, especially if you do live in a multi-generational household where you're taking care of elders in the family, or you have other financial obligations, whether you're sending money home or, just things are tight in general, like going to in-person CE is super duper expensive. And, not only the expense side, but who's going to take care of grandma?
Right.
Who's going to feed dad because he doesn't know how to cook or whatever, like being away from the home is a huge, huge ask for a lot of
Mhm.
different communities. So I definitely think that that's an easy way for academies to really accommodate more people. Um, and then certainly, I think the academies do like a decent job by providing a letter for employers saying, hey, like your technician is on this path to become a VTS, you should support them. I think we should maybe emphasize that a little bit more, and as an academy leader, like we can push a little bit more saying, these are the detailed things that they really need your support on, whether it's time commitments to go study or work on your application. But certainly, you know, being a VTS does have cost benefit to the practice. So, can you
Mhm.
pay for my $50 exam fee or $150 application fee? Like there are things that the employer, I think, can do financially that can also be very supportive and helpful to encourage their staff to go down this pathway.
It sounds like that's just even beyond people of color, beyond marginalized identities, right? Is that like
Absolutely.
supporting technicians in
Absolutely.
general to be able to further their careers? It's a doing any of those strategies, whether it's Kamaya, what you said, money,
Mhm.
and Stephen, what you said is expanding the kinds of things that are required, like being more inclusive of virtual CE and things like that, that allow people to, or even like stipends, right? Like if you're going to send me to an in-person conference and I'm going to be gone for 3 days and I take care of my mom who's disabled, then an amazing stipend to allow me to pay another family member to take care of her, or a professional caregiver to come and take care of her, would make it possible, right? To go and do
Yeah.
that thing.
Or even something as simple as like, hey, I have to go to this conference for 3 days. And, you figure that you come up with a plan, you figure out how to pay for it. You now got the CE, and then you're just like, oh my God, I'm not gonna, there's 3 days I won't be paid, like, or I have to use
Yeah.
my PTO, and just maybe giving it to be where, hey, you can have this day off, and just for a CE day, we, veterinarians get like, continuing education time and things like that. Just being able
Yeah.
to give that to a technician to be able to go get their CE can also make a difference, not only for them professionally, but personally in their life, being able to take care of their family and not have to worry about, oh, my check is going to be short this week because I have to go
Yeah.
get my CE. It's going to
Yeah.
be
Great
important.
point. Yeah, I remember getting when I was a baby technician, I remember they offered us retirement benefits, and I was being paid 13 an hour. And I was like, how do you expect me to put anything away for retirement?
Right.
It was such a silly benefit that I was like, this is a joke, right? And
Right.
then later on, I remember getting CE, like they'll cover the registration of VMX or something, it's a good, or even like a IVEX, so pretty
Right.
big like registration fee. But then it's like, how am I going to pay for the plane and the lodging
The
and all
hotel.
the
Yep.
things? So it's kind of like, it's like you're giving me something, but you're not giving it in a way that I can actually access it and use it. So great. Yeah, great responses to that. So lots of really good ideas there. I wanted to also talk to you. Let me look at the time because I'm ensuring that we have enough time for Q&A, which
Yeah.
we will get to. So folks, if you have any questions for our speakers tonight, make sure that you're popping them in the Q&A so that we can go ahead and get to them. So I have another, before we get to the Q&A, I have another question for you. I have a couple of questions. So we'll try to keep these short here. So, NAFTA, the National Association of Vet Techs in America, recently released its first DEIB landscape report. It's titled Where We Stand. The report, has drawn some criticism for the low response rate, some methodological, wow, I can't speak tonight, and statistical issues, and even a poorly, maybe AI translated Spanish version of the survey that they sent out. The flaws kind of raised some questions about the validity of its conclusion that respondents generally reported positive attitudes around DEIB initiatives. What are your thoughts on this report and its findings? And what do you think its conclusions reveal about how the veterinary technician profession currently understands or misunderstands its diversity challenges?
Yeah, I haven't independently looked at their data, but I will say I was saddened by the poor response rate, and that's not necessarily on NAPTA because I know they tried really hard to send it out to as many people as possible, and they sent it out to like literally tens of thousands of people. So I am sad that our profession didn't necessarily respond and give us maybe some higher quality data, some better numbers to work with. Um, and I don't know, like when it comes to the acceptance and positivity towards DEI initiatives, it's interesting. I think in general, like we're all well intended, but I don't know, maybe I'm just a little bit biased from some of the negative responses we got in our survey regarding sexual orientation, language, that kind of thing. So, um, I certainly think a lot of their numbers, despite being pretty low turnout, generally track. Um, but the real acceptance and the real implementation of real DEIB initiatives is questionable, and that has nothing to do with NAPTA. That is just questionable to me because humans, like things that sound good, but then when they're asked to put in the work, you know, things don't always turn out as hunky dory as we would have liked.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it definitely brings up the questions for me around, like how can we trust this data? We didn't get enough of a response rate. I'm sure that we're, even among credentialed technicians that we're much more diverse than what this survey says. There's a technology program at an HBCU. Like how hard did we try to ensure that we got credentialed graduates of that program to answer this? And it depends, right? Are we asking only NAVTA members versus what would it look like to ask people who aren't NAVTA members, right? And get a sense of kind of the wider picture.
I think
Okay.
that I remember from reading the study that was one of the things. I think they only surveyed NAFTA members. I think
Mm,
that also made the pool a little bit smaller.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's hard to extrapolate anything from that
Right.
data. Um, okay. Let me look in the Q&A. I don't see anything so far. So folks, if you have any questions, oh, we got one. Yay. Thank you so much. I'm going to read this out to you all. Okay. How can we get more BIPOC community involved in the surveys? I agree with Stephen. Those results are very dissatisfying and don't believe that they are valid, especially the questions asked about discrimination and feeling safe or feeling welcomed.
I mean, especially, so again, like this has nothing to do with NAPTA, but like for people to be vulnerable like that and talk about ways that they've been discriminated against, or even just saying that out loud, there's a big there's just a big's not the right word. Bigly. Oh my God, I'm not going to use that word. Just kidding.
Don't do it.
There's still a need to build bridges, and there's still a need to there's still a need for better outreach, not just with NAPTA, but with all of the academies, with all of the veterinary medical associations in general. So I think, that's certainly something. And then I certainly think, committees that are developed with a DEI focus need to be fully vetted and well developed, not just, this is a nice thing, or, they need to be in it, basically. And not just a well-intended, good-hearted person. Like those are great to have, but like we need real representation on there. And from what I recall from many, many DEI committees, like it's still unseasoned.
Yeah.
Unseasoned is the word. I think
Yeah.
it's also very unfortunately, I think that one of the things that we have to do when it comes to a lot of things within um and not just the academies, just for credential technicians and the professions in general, is that we need to go a little bit deeper than this, the surface of it all. I think that we'd spend a lot of time where I think that these things are kind of like thrown out there, and then it's like everyone's really excited about them, and then like in a couple of weeks, a couple of months, it's just kind of like slowly like dilutes and washes away, and no one takes it to like the next level or to like the deeper layers of things. And I think that's one of I don't that's it unfortunately trickles to every level of it, from just technicians to credential technicians all the way to the VTS pipeline itself. And until we kind of fix those things and go deeper, deeper than just on the surface, we unfortunately we're going to make little traction in that way, in that
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah. It sounds like, it's if you plan to do a survey and you plan to do this work, it's just important to know, what are you going to do after? Like, what are you going to do after you get the results? If the results say like everything's great, are you going to trust that?
Right.
Or are you going to keep working on it?
I had an interesting experience. I was working with a bunch of groups, and they're all veterinary focused, and the discussion was, should we add diversity statements into our like constitution and bylaws for all these different groups? And everyone's like, yay. And I was like, this is going to be weird coming from me, but I'm going to vote no against this, because what are you actually going to do about it? Are you going to enforce anything? Like, is this just a statement? Like, are you just performing like this? Yes, it's a good thing to do, but it's hollow, right? Like, I don't want these statements to be hollow. If you're not gonna put in the work, which I don't think any of them have, it's a waste of ink on paper.
Yeah. Yeah. We have another question that just came in too. That says, I'm always frustrated with acquiring contact info for veterinary technicians, or it says VTS. So many states won't release or require payment for the mailing list of techs, and that is only for the states that credential technicians. Academies are great, but then only specialists are contacted. Any suggestions on how or where or who can establish a national database so more accurate information can be gathered for surveys?
For VTSs specifically, NAPTA does do a curated list of active members for the academy. So if you go to the NAPTA website, they do have that. And then more recently with Colorado, I think Nevada reached out recently. You can contact the academies themselves, and they will give lists. Like our academy certainly will give a list or confirm membership, that kind of thing. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but you know, NAFTA does keep a curated list that's updated with annual reports that the academies submit to NAFTA.
Yeah. I think it should add on to that. I think another thing in reference to communication, and you start at your state level with your state association. And I think that sometimes, I know, depending on your state, which also goes into another conversation about, you know, national standards and things like that. But your state association is also a great place for you to start in reference to getting contact information or getting information there if you're looking just for general questions or information like that. The other thing that I will say about this is that I think it just goes into back to us what we were saying before. It's just we're all credential technicians, we're all VTSs, and I think that in participation, involvement, you know, engagement is also going to make a big difference with all of this. And so, no matter what we do, no matter what the discussion is going to be, I think the more engaged you are, that it will just pay forward. Somebody else will continue to also be engaged, and hopefully that would give us traction towards better engagement, better involvement, better movement, better traction in all these things that we're trying to do, especially when it relates to diversifying the pipeline.
I've got another question for you here from the audience. It says, how do we balance the ever-present need for DEIB initiatives in vet med, credentialed vet technicians, veterinary technician specialists with a current political climate? Are the academies open to collecting data and performing outreach? As an aside, I just want to say thanks to you all for your hard work.
Thank you. I mean, I know my academy is certainly interested and invested in that kind of thing. And several of the academies that I talk to regularly, I think certainly would be interested in that type of thing. When it comes to the national climate, political climate, like, damn, it just feels like we're trying to survive at this point. You know, like I was discussing at IVEX, you know, it's one thing just to have the stress of work, the stress of money, and now the stress of walking down the street looking brown and speaking Spanish and having someone coming and arresting you. So like, it is just on another level right now. And, you know, like, I think it's always good to maintain this information, to collect this information at all times, but it feels like we're in a period, at least in my opinion, of just survival. Like, you know, I just, that's where I'm at in my head. Yeah.
I think for us, one of those things to think about is that you know, you can't ignore the political climate, but I think for the focus in reference to veterinary medicine and our profession and what the academies and the and committees are doing, I think that we need to always remember that we're here for the patients, and if culturally competent led patient care is our focus, we cannot avoid, we cannot ignore DIB and how that's going to make a difference in us being able to, you know, do the best and give the best for our patients in that sense. So I think that if we try to have it to be where our focus is still where, you know, what we came in here for our patients and for the care of those patients, then I think that the academies and what we're doing and what we're trying to do in reference to DEIB will continue regardless of what's happening politically, hopefully.
Yeah.
If we're still here.
Yeah, I mean, all care is political, right? So it's
Right.
really going back to that question we talked about, is those patient outcomes. Okay, so I don't see any more questions in the Q&A. I have one last question to ask you all before we close out for the night and let all these people have oh, actually, I got one more question. I'm committed to the attendees. So I want to ask this question.
Love it.
It says, for those with the bandwidth to volunteer time to further DEIB initiatives, what questions do we need to ask or information do we need to know before we say yes to a committee or task force? Ooh, that's a good one.
That's a deep one. Good for
I
them.
Yeah, I was like,
I mean, they're all good, but woo, this
Yeah.
one. Yeah, what do people need to know before they say, yeah, I'll volunteer with you?
Go ahead, Camia.
well, the first thing that came to my mind, and I don't know if this is the right thing to say, but I think one of the things that you need to go into something like that into saying is like, one, kudos for you for even wanting to volunteer your time, because that is a commitment in itself. And the first thing I thought about is literally an iceberg. You see what at the top of the surface of the iceberg, but there's going to be a lot of stuff that's under the layers of that. And I think that I'm a realist in that sense and thinking like, hey, going into it thinking that you want to go in knowing that there's things to work on, but understanding that there's deeper layers to it and there's a lot more that needs to be done. And we know that for a fact, just as credential technicians at all, in general, we have so much going on, so many changes, national standards, engagement, all these things that we've been talking about now. So I think that DIB and joining the committee, those are kind of have to go into it with that same understanding that you might be dealing with an iceberg, and it's a matter of the fact that you are wanting to volunteer your time and put energy and effort into that. You're already helping to like pave the way of getting that iceberg to be smaller and smaller.
Yeah. I would just add to that, coming in with an open mind and ready to have perspectives change. I get called out all the time in good ways,
We love you for that, Stephen.
Certainly coming in with an open mind and willing to learn, but also when developing these things, as I mentioned earlier, I see a lot of DEI committees or task forces or whatever look unseasoned. Like, listen to the voices of the spices on the shelf, please. Like, don't just pick up the salt. Like, there's too much salt in so many things. Listen to the spices, because that's what you're there for.
Yeah, yeah. It makes a difference to be able to see, am I going to be the lonely only here who's going to be talking about this and who's going to be the expert in the room and then be ignored? Right. That's a big thing. It's a big way to know, like, are these genuine people who are willing to learn? If I have feedback that goes against what they think is the best way forward, right? Are they going to listen to that in my own lived experience? So, all right, thank you both. I have one last question for you both. We'll keep it brief and then we'll close out the night and do our raffle. We ask this of all of our guests. Help us go beyond the page. That's what the series is called. Help us go beyond the page when it comes to diversifying the vet tech specialist pipeline. What is one thing that veterinary professionals can do differently or do immediately to take the ideas that you wrote about in your chapter off the page and turn them into meaningful action? And I'll ask Stephen, you can go first.
I think the one thing that can be done right now, as I alluded to earlier in the discussion, is, with some new data sets that we have come out, it looks like, hopefully there is some more diversity. So if you are a BIPOC person or another marginalized part of a member of a marginalized community, like, please reach out to academies to help. Like, we need you so bad. Visibility is, I think, probably one of the number one takeaways from our data sets.
Kamaya?
Yeah, my answer was going to be engage, communicate, reach out, ask questions. But I think the biggest things is just, like engagement. Just put yourself out there. We want you to be there. We want you to be involved. We want you to ask questions. The more questions we have, the more diversity that's there, the more progress that we can make. And I think that we won't know if we don't hear your voice. And as there's no such thing as a small voice. A voice is a voice. So just if we don't, we just want to hear it.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for and everyone in the audience tonight for joining us. This has been an incredible conversation. I'm always so excited to talk to other veterinary technicians about just work in general, but then beyond that, right? How we can better the profession. And it's so great to have you both here tonight to share with us. We want to thank Maddie's Fund again for sponsoring this webinar series. And before you all go, just let us in the audience, we're going to do the raffle in a minute, but before you go, let us know what you thought of this event and what more you'd like to see us discuss by taking our anonymous feedback survey, which is going to be in the chat in just a minute. And we'll be picking up where we left off with the next chapter of Beyond the Page in January. So we're taking a little bit of a break for the holidays and for our conference, and we'll be back with more Beyond the Page in January. So make sure you've signed up for the newsletter to be notified when the next session's registration opens, and to also stay up to date on all our upcoming events, like our Rise Remix conference, which is next month. And Ashley is going to be putting the a link for the newsletter in the chat. So if you're not already signed up as a member or for a newsletter, make sure you sign up for our newsletter. And then we'll also put in the chat our upcoming virtual conference. So there's more information about Rise Remix. Our conference, this is our third conference that we're doing, and this is a smaller version of our larger Rise conference, but still just as powerful. We're going to have some great sessions that we'll be actually announcing later this week, and so we really love to see you all there. That said, here's the moment that all of us have been waiting for. We're getting here towards the end. I'm going to draw a raffle for 2 tickets to Rise Remix tonight. Rise Remix is on Saturday, November 22nd. It's from 8 a.m. Pacific to 6 p.m. Pacific. You can do that in your time zone if you'd like. It'll all be recorded. So if you have a ticket, you'll be able to access all of those recordings as well. So let me just open up my screen here where I have all of your names set into a raffle. And then I am going to share my screen. See here so you all can see it. There might be some people who've come and gone since we started, but if you're here tonight, you'll probably see your name right on here. If you are an MCVMA board member, staff member, already a speaker at Rise, then you will not be on this list. But I'm going to spin the wheel and then we're going to see who wins. And we've got Ashley Haney, who I believe is with us tonight. So yay! Well, congratulations, Ashley. I'm going to remove you from the list and go to the next person. Luisa Fernandez, congratulations. So we are going to be, I'm going to stop sharing my screen there. Congratulations to you both. You'll be reached out to soon, probably from me. I'll be reaching out to you with a unique link to get you pre-registered for the conference. So I have your emails from your registrations for tonight. So congratulations. I'll be in touch in the next day or so to follow up on how you can access the conference. And don't feel bad if you didn't win tonight. You can still get tickets to Rise Remix, or you can apply for a scholarship. We're officially announcing our scholarships here tonight for the first time. So before anyone else gets to see it, we do have scholarship applications that are available now, and they're specifically designed to make this event, Rise Remix, more accessible to everyone in the veterinary and animal welfare community who wants to attend. So that link is being put in the chat right now. So if you're here tonight and you'd like some financial support to get to come to Rise, please fill out an application. All the information there. The deadline, I think, is November 3rd, and we'll be reaching out to folks, applicants, that same week. So put a hold on your calendar, apply for the scholarship if you need it, and we hope to see you there. Otherwise, we hope you'll purchase a ticket and come to the conference. It's a really great time with a lot of incredible speakers and incredible community. So thank you, everyone who came tonight. We really appreciate you spending your night with us. And with that, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know for you East Coasters, it's late. So thank you so much. Happy Vet Tech Week, and have a good night, everyone. Take good care. Bye, everyone.
Happy Vet